Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is time for episode number 55 of Truth Will Set You Free here on this lovely June evening, the middle of summer, day after or so of the summer solstice. So beautiful outside. You can see that new graphic on the bottom right, thanks to Casey Rasmussen, who designed that. We've got the Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google, all available within a couple days of the episode. Do me a favor while we get this party started. We need you guys to share this out there. We need the like, we need the hearts, we need the shares. Truth Will Set You Free will be beginning in less than a minute. We've got some people from Liberty Revolt Media, pretty much the whole crew from Liberty Revolt Media, because one of them just showed up awkwardly. He climbed the stairs like Spider-Man, and he's currently snuggling with Cole. Super weird, little spoon. We, of course, have Suni, the middle child, and Casey, everybody's favorite libertarian, in the house. We'll get started shortly. We've got a great show. We're going to be talking a little bit about Trump saying he didn't concede, feeding the Q Mafia. Do we live in a white supremacist nation? Are they the biggest threat biggest domestic terror threat in the country? Which will lead us talking about a little bit of critical race theory, or CRT. Woke mob comes from manuel Miranda, and of course the transgender athlete wanting to burn the flag if she reaches the medal podium. And yeah, we're of course going to cover Gavin Newsom, $5.2 billion federal dollars to rent forgiveness as part of his re-election maintain, I guess you can call it. All right, let's get the show started. We need a lot more people watching, so do me a favor, hit the share button, hit the like, hit the hearts. Let's get the party started. It's time for Truth Will Set You Free. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for Truth Will Set You Free. That's why we can't have Liberty Revolt Media on ever again. That's the last time. We've got the whole crew with us, ladies and gentlemen. We've got Gordon, Casey, Kevin, Cole, and Dylan, I believe, as though we're making out in the bottom left corner and got really excited about it. I don't know what happened. We have a great show for you guys. Here's the deal. The numbers, as usual, a little lower than I typically like. So please do me a favor. Everybody start making comments in the comment box. Share this out there. Do me a favor. Really, Woody? That was not the dog. That, unless there was a Woody coming from Cole. I don't know. I don't know what happened down there. All of a sudden, this just became Countervengeance. Ew, gross. All right, guys, if you want to do us a favor and you want to support what we've got going on here, I need you guys to check out the bottom banner, which is going to be up right now. If you want to support us, again, as you guys know, don't care about Venmo and Cash App. Or PayPal. I prefer the Patreons because you get a little bit extra. Whenever we get the chance to go live, we do that. Patreon.com/BetheChange USA. That's going to be going across the bottom as we go. If you'd like to support us with merch, all you got to do is go to #BetheChange.com and go through the site. That is also where our podcast is. And I send out kind of a weekly notice on the podcast shows that are up on the site. They come out anywhere from 3 to 6 days after the show. Gives you guys a chance to watch. That includes MATA. That includes Truth Will Set You Free, Changemakers, etc. This week, also on Changemakers, we've got a great episode with Jermaine Lawrence Anderson from I Am a Gentleman Inc. Changemaker. Awesome guy. You probably saw him all over the news, Kelly Clarkson, all that stuff about 3 years ago. It's going to be exciting. With that said, we've got a great crew with us today for today's episode. You know Casey. You, of course, know Suni. And we've got the whole team of what happened to Dylan?
So Dylan actually got out of here. Apparently, he just wanted to climb my porch, say hello, and then leave. And it was highly annoying. But guys, I'm happy to be here with you, and I'm happy he's not next to me anymore.
So I don't want Cole to be here for this. When he says climb his porch, is that a weird Urban Dictionary thing?
Maybe.
Ew, I'm gonna get
guys,
this conversation.
you think whatever you want. It's Pride Month, okay?
Yeah, we know. Everybody knows it's Pride Month. As somebody
We
that is
know.
fully in support of the gay community, if I see one more flag, I'm going to lose my mind. Like, I don't. Do we do this for the military? Do we do it for the first
Thank
responders?
you. Thank
We have a
you.
whole month of like making sure every brand, Skittles has gotten rid of their damn rainbow.
Skittles went the complete opposite direction and went for the white Skittles, and we all knew that was going to be a bad idea. But this corporate wokeness month that we got of June is nice. I appreciate it.
Since when was there a brown and a black Skittle? The two new colors.
There was a brown Skittle.
Those were M&Ms, I always thought.
Brown has always been there.
I'm sure Macy Gray had something to do with that. She wants to change the flag colors as well as Skittles. I'm sure she wants like light brown. She wants a whole myriad of different browns because apparently that's super important. That's the most important pressing issue against Americans right now. All right, so right now we've got just around 100 people watching, which is not enough. So I need you guys to do me a favor, hit the share button, and also we have a fifth of the people watching. I'm getting into math right now. Apparently, I enjoy numbers, unlike Dr. Fauci. So I need you guys to go ahead and hit the hearts, care button, all the different things right now. Help us. That is the way that the algorithm will pick up what we are doing. And again, leave comments. I see where everybody is saying that in the box. And on the YouTube, if you're watching on YouTube, if you want to make sure you see us go live every time, the subscribe isn't enough. There is a bell underneath the video. Go ahead and hit that bell, and that will be the way that you are notified when we go live. Share. Exactly. Last bit of news, internal news, we will be launching a different brand of clothing, part of BetheChange shortly, as we are working on the trademark for it. But it sounds as though we will be having a whole line of awake, not woke gear. Pretty excited about that. So you'll see that logo coming out probably by tomorrow's Concert Avengers. We should have that finalized, and we'll get that on hats and different stuff. Pretty cool stuff. Somehow, we're the first one to the trademark on that one. So now we just got to fight for the U.S. government for it, the U.S. Trademark Patent Office. Moving on. All right, let's get started. Number one, because I think this is a fun way to start the show. Let's start with the whole Trump audio of him saying he did not concede. What do we think about this? Let's go ahead and start with. I know Suni did a post about it, so Suni, go ahead. What do you think about the troll feeding?
I think Trump should stop. I truly do. I think we all love him for what he did for the country. He will always have my respect for that. He's the GOAT. He's been GOAT status. But man, you are playing into the far right-wing nuts, man. These people are taking what you said, President Trump, and they're saying that you're going to come back because you didn't concede. What he really meant was, I never conceded because I didn't lose. But it does not mean I'm coming back in August or I'm going to be reinstated. If you notice, far right news sources are now hopping on this and saying Trump can be reinstated. That's crap. It's crap. We need to stay a part of reality. I just asked people, just so people wouldn't get in their fields. I just said, what does it mean? And it was interesting to see what a lot of different people thought. Most people, like you guys and me here, they were like, he just simply said he didn't lose, which is factual in my opinion. But everything else is it's in Q-tard land. Sorry.
Never heard that one. That was good. Casey, what do you think?
Well, he's just going to become our president. We only got a month and a half. He's going to become our president. We're going to go back. He's going to be the 19th president of the United States pre-corporation. So we all know it's going to be okay. We just got to live into it and just hold on tight.
I have to be clear for anybody that is fact-checking on YouTube or on Facebook, our favorite libertarian friend is just kidding. Kevin, I didn't give you a chance to introduce yourself. Go ahead and introduce yourself, and also let's go ahead and give us your opinion on the. I did not concede. I have to be clear. Did not concede. I bigly did not concede.
I am the best. There was no one better than me in this last election. I did not concede. Okay, it's crap. Everyone says it's crap. We all know it's crap. That's not me saying it. That's everyone else. Kevin here from Liberty Revolt Media, back again. I appreciate you guys having me on once more. But yeah, I think that what this does more than anything, though, is the left, especially the leftist media, really likes to point at the QAnon and paint everybody with the
Yep.
QAnon brush. And the more he does this, the more CNN and them can say, look at these QAnon people. Mind you, like, I'm pretty, in with the hip conservative crowd, and I don't remember the last time I met someone who was QAnon, but like, they do such a good job of convincing people that so many conservatives are QAnon, and look at how crazy QAnon is, that this only just helps that fuel that narrative that they then use to treat conservatives just like we think they should be treating Antifa.
Facts.
I had a conversation with a woman. It was great. I was at the College World Series this last week, and she was very much like, I've never been a Republican. I've always been an independent, but I really like Trump. And then we started talking about the way that Q just changed their information, changed the game. And Q's original intention was to get people to do their own research, big into human trafficking and child trafficking, and what happened with it, just like every major group that is there to provide help, it was infiltrated by those that are creating misinformation. The initial intent of Q was never, ever to say, August this, March this is what's happening. Their actual mission was to say, do your own research. This is what we found. Give it a look. Like, this is where we see some discrepancies. This is where we see some issues. And ultimately, they were supposed to be saving children. And now they're all so worried about, look what's coming back. And this kind of thing feeds that kind of troll. Cole, what do you think?
Well, I just want to say I actually have a lot of Q people very close to me. And by that, I mean in my family. So I talk about this stuff all the time. Really what it is, the reason I think this whole August thing is coming back is there's a Q audience out there, guys, and there's a whole network of channels that are just banking in on this Q audience who's waiting to be told that Trump is coming back, who's waiting to be told that Trump is going to be the savior of the country, that Q has been telling them is going down the tubes for the past 4 years. It's really, at this point, predatory YouTubers and people deliberately spreading misinformation for their own gain and using the backbone of conservatives in the Republican Party as their base, basically. And they are eroding the very structures that they are telling their people they're trying to uphold by pushing this narrative and making everybody else think that we are a bunch of Q-tards as a whole.
No.
Facts. That question, can I answer that question?
Yeah, and I'm honestly, I've had a bunch of different people give me a bunch of different answers. So go ahead.
At best, voter laws are going to change. And I don't think they'll be done with the entire audit. I don't even think they'll get to the bottom of it. Maybe at the end of Biden's 4 years, it's a forensic audit that they're going through. The only thing that it'll prove is there was cheating, will be vindicated on some level, and then they're going to change laws. But Trump is not going to be reinstated. Like, he's not. We just need to accept that. Unfortunately, the leader of the free world is Joseph Biden.
So with that said, so there's a school of thought, and Mike Lindell, I think, has a bold mission. I think he does. And he is under the school of thought, based on the lawyers that he has hired and the money that he has made off of pillows, that there is a way of reversing and he has a great, I want to be clear, he's got a great backstory. And I think that he's gotten a lot of flack just because of his support for Trump. But he is under the belief system that there is a way of changing and rewording and altering the Constitution in a couple different ways, and thinking that he can win a case that does this. Every other lawyer that's not working under that group says that you can't just replace somebody because of the audits. The people that I've spoken with that are in a little bit above my pay grade that have given me some information, we won't see any true results from the audits for the next 8 months. And then, if anything, as soon as he said it could take, we're already almost halfway through the presidency at that point. So by the time anything really shakes out, you're looking at the end of 2020. You're looking at least 2022 to 2023. So ultimately, nothing's going to happen. So what it will mean is that we're vindicated. That's a huge step. It's to show that we do need to make sure we have stricter voting, and we need to make sure that voter ID laws are in place. And as you guys saw today, dead on the floor in round number 1, it was blocked from changing, which is huge. They're going to keep trying, because ultimately the way the biggest thing happening right now is pushing for this federal change in voter laws to make it where everybody can vote and ballot harvesting can happen, and they're using the guise of Jim Crow and racism to pretty much force people into going, whoa, 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 I don't want this, when in all reality, all they're doing is taking back the COVID-specific voting restrictions and still providing more opportunity. But the thing that they want is the ability to control the vote in a drastic way, and that's scary. So that's kind of the news of exactly what happened, and that's why that's important. Does anybody else have anything to say on this topic specifically about Cricket's question?
Just a reminder, our judicial system is slow as hell.
Yeah.
It is not going to be done in a timely manner. So just remember that is why Trump will not be coming back, even if there is something with an audit. If something magical happens, we might have a special election. That's the best case scenario. But
I actually have a question.
Things to happen.
Here's the question. Actually, here's the if you are a huge Trump supporter and it is found that he was cheated in 2020, and they actually, I can't believe I just said, if it found as though there was issues, because there wasn't, it's 100% it was legit. I want to be very clear. Legit is legit is legit. But if they find this in the audits, if anybody thinks that he will lose in 2024, they're sorely mistaken. I don't think anybody that was like, he was lying, I couldn't possibly, I can't imagine him losing in 2024 if that vindication happens. So yeah, that's about it on that one. And let's go ahead and move to topic number 2, which is why I'm really excited to have you guys. Cole got turned on his side, or is that just me?
No, that's he's Cole.
And he's frozen.
Oh, he's back. Gosh.
Am I normal again?
That's a very deep question, man. We don't know the answer.
You're never going to answer that question.
I feel like Dylan slapped him across the head and he turned sideways. It was super weird.
Too much time with Dylan will do this to anybody. You guys, I'm telling you what. You have him on the podcast too much, your whole audience is going to be weird. Anyways, yeah, so I think this whole thing, guys, I was never even a part of the Stop the Steal crowd or I never even cared about Trump that much, to tell you the truth. I think Trump's kind of dumb, but I think he's a lot better than Biden. Sorry for the people who like him. I still think he's he has the balls that we need and the brains that we don't. That's my whole idea on Trump. People may think he's smarter than he is. I don't think he is, honestly. Yeah, that's it. I don't have too big of an issue with people wanting Trump to come back, and I understand if there were inconsistencies with the election. But it's time to move on. It's time to reform the party. It's time to look at policy. It's time to stop looking at conspiracy theories. Let's make people think we're like normal citizens again and get involved in the conversation that everyone else is having.
Let's make America think again. Love it. All right. So another topic. Earlier today, I brought up, I had a whole thing on Fauci. If anybody saw that video, I apologize. It was a little choppy in the beginning, but the good stuff is in the middle. But yeah, it was just choppy in the beginning. Essentially, that was not FBI. I want to dispel any weird stuff. That was not Facebook or FBI messing with my video. My cache was full, so that's why it's better now. So I like to shoot you guys straight. Everybody's like, "Oh, Facebook's messing with your video," which I can always think, but that one was my bad. I've been running with too many windows open for too long. All right, so let's talk about the next topic, which I think we need to have this conversation. I've tried getting some guests on this week. Actually, we might have some for next week. We also might have a couple weeks from now, we might have somebody from the Proud Boys to talk a little bit about more the misinformation on that organization. And it's actually the guy that has the really funny signs in Tennessee, if anybody's seen those, where he makes fun of like Hunter Biden and all that stuff. So we might have him on in a couple weeks. But right now, we're going to start the conversation and we're going to keep continuing it because I think it's incredibly important because according to the FBI, white supremacy is the biggest threat, the biggest domestic terror threat in the country. Anybody have any feedback to this?
I actually
Kevin,
I'm writing an article on it right now. This thing is I mentioned it last time I was on, but it's a really scary bill. It's basically outlines how the federal government is going to approach what they call the most imminent threat to America today, domestic terrorism, and it outlines how the biggest it lays out these things like the biggest failings of the government in combating it is intergovernmental communication, and then talking down disseminating information down to the local level. They're trying to mobilize the entirety of the Department of Justice, of the intelligence community within America, against what they call white supremacy. However, in this document itself, it points to mainstream conservative talking points as the instigator for radicalization into white supremacy, like talking about election fraud, talking about bad COVID problems, talking about or talking down about the or making it seem less dangerous, the January 6th quote unquote insurrection and everything. So this document is basically trying to say that the biggest threat facing us right now is, unnamed domestic terrorism, but that means white supremacists and people that don't like the government, because that was category 2, domestic. You have your white supremacists and your anti-government people. So it really starts feeling like an anti-political opposition thing more than anything else. So that's kind of just the overview.
The truth is the number one threat to America.
Yes. So it would seem at this point.
In that document, Kevin, because this is what I've asked for.
Yeah.
Is there any statistic besides the FBI creating an emotional falsehood? Is there any statistic, whether it's like KKK numbers are up by 500%? Is there any specific statement that's saying white people murdering black people, or whatever it is, has drastically increased over the last couple of years? Is there anything statistically that backs up the FBI statement?
There is absolutely almost zero statistics throughout this entire document. They use anecdotes as evidence. So this document is really a good example of how the cultural Marxist tactics of language manipulation really works. They use very vague language, and then when they do use examples, it's almost exclusively white mass. They go over mass shootings, and it's almost exclusively white men committing it. They don't once mention. Funny that they don't mention the Pride nightclub shooting down in Orlando that saw 49 LGBTQ people shot by an Islamic man. They don't mention at all. They don't mention once the seizing of land by terrorist organizations in cities like Seattle, where they took 6 city blocks. They don't mention anything except for the one time when the BLM supporters shot up the police officers in Dallas in 2016. That's the only one they mention. And they mentioned that one specifically because the victim was someone that the conservatives support. So they line it up in a specific way so that people like us can't really stand against it, because it's attacking white supremacy. Why do you feel attacked if what you believe isn't white supremacy? And yet everything they detail within it is not white supremacy, right? It's a lot of anecdotes, and it's a lot of vague language, but when we try to combat it, it's like, look, all those things we listed were white men, and the other one was when police officers were shot. So it's like, I don't know what you're arguing about, and it's because there's an intent behind the language at play here.
Yeah, it's all tied together, Kevin. Every bit of it is tied together, because seriously, remember that Antifa was formed to actually fight people who were real fascists, and now they got bored and they just want to fight people who are conservatives, and they lump them in with white supremacists because of CRT, which lumps whiteness in with a supremacy organization of power. And even CRT and the narratives that these people listen to is saying that whiteness doesn't exist except as a function of power, right? Mm-hmm. And therefore, all whiteness as an expression is white supremacy, and therefore conservatism is white supremacy. This is what these people actually believe.
Here's my other question: Why are they pushing it? Why is this so important? Why is it so important for them to get this message out there that white supremacy is the biggest threat? What is the end game of this? What is the long game?
It's the narrative. It's all about the narrative. They have to have this narrative out that somehow, because what they try to tell you is that somehow, some way, this country is worse off, especially when it comes to race relations, than we were in the 1960s, back in the Jim Crow area. Somehow they have to convince us, in order for their narrative to be true, they have to convince us that white supremacy, that white racism is still a thing, that this system is still geared towards promoting white people's status above anyone else's, which is why they never actually talk about statistics. They never talk about the fact that, in fact, the most successful race of people in this country is Asian people. They never talk about the fact that when you look at violent crime in our country, it's unfortunate that 53% of the murders are committed by 13% of our population. And when you actually divvy that up, it comes down to about 4%. They can't have these issues being addressed because that statistic has become true under the watch of the Democratic Party. So if this stuff stops becoming the narrative, all of a sudden people start diving in and going, wait, what is the reality? And you start realizing the reality is these communities that have been dominated by the Democratic Party for 50, 60, 70 years are actually in worse spots than they would have been had the Democratic Party not been there at all. Yet the Democratic Party still needs these communities to vote for them en masse. So they have to maintain this narrative. It is all about cementing their position of power, and it's slipping away, which is why they're going so aggressively at it right now.
And it's just everybody's so misguided. Like they're tripping over virtue signaling as they go. Great example. Seattle Pride organizers are now getting complaints of reverse racism for a Black Pride event because they were asking white attendees to pay a $50 reparation fee. You can't make this shit up anymore. Like it's gotten so far. And they did. And then some people complained. Finally, somebody in that group, maybe that was ultra left, finally goes, okay, this is where I draw the line. Like, this no longer makes any sense to me anymore. So then the question becomes, and there was something earlier I kept hearing on all the different stations, including Fox, when I was driving, that there is what was it, a university or what was it? Help me if you guys saw the news today, where they're essentially teaching classes or forcing people to live in the skin of their whiteness and understand that their whole life is going to be a struggle to get rid of that whiteness. That
I would think that's quite a few universities trying to.
This is not a joke. This is any university that delves deep into critical theory and critical race theory and actually defining whiteness sociologically and philosophically is going to say the same thing about whiteness being an institution of power, of pushing slavery, of oppressing minorities. I mean, this is the meta narrative that they're actually pushing within the whole discourse. It's not some isolated incident. And most people don't know this because the people who get that far within the discourse say, oh, well, this just makes sense within the terms of what they taught me before.
Yeah. Suni, from your perspective, before we get into exactly CRT, putting everything together we just talked about, seeing it from both sides, you obviously being a Black conservative are seeing this weird power struggle to who's virtue signaling the most. For your perspective, why is this narrative of white supremacy being this horrible domestic terror threat with zero information, zero facts? Why is that so important to dispel? Can we dispel it? How do we dispel it?
It is important to dispel because we have so my generation, we didn't grow up with racism. I don't even remember ever having racial issues, but you have this up and coming generation. They're not so aware of what's what. Their history has been completely shredded. So you have to make white supremacy the biggest thing in America because all these other organizations are pushing it. You have BLM, you have the NBA, you have the NFL. The NFL has end racism in their video game. Madden has a celebration called Solidarity where each player stands on their knee and they put a fist up. It's in video games. So this is in my personal opinion, and I feel like I'm right on this. This is to keep people divided. This is the only way you can control people. Let's keep Black folks thinking that there's white supremacy so that they never stop fighting white people. Let's keep white people on a defense of always having to say that I'm not racist. The two communities aren't going to talk to each other. Democrats and Republicans can still remain and do what they do, and America goes back to business. Trump, he messed up everything. So now they're working in overtime to make sure that we do not think for ourselves.
And then on top
Nailed
of
it.
it, as we said, there's no statistics that prove it. And then you look at what happens in Chicago. You look at what happens in all these states, like what we just saw with the Latino husband and wife, or father, the father and mother. They were pulled out. The mother just passed away today. So both parents are killed. Now we find out it was, I think, another Latino gang member, but there's black people all around. Again, color shouldn't matter. These are bad people. These are crappy people. They're forcing the American public to choose who's doing worse, black or white, which is stupid. And that's the ultimate means of separation. Like what is going on in Chicago, I think, and I think Suna, you might have posted this, was like 20 something people shot, 11 people killed this last week, or even more than that. And this is happening mostly in the black community. What does that have to do with white supremacy? Why? Because once every 4 months, there's a mass shooter that kills 3 to 12 people so that they can make sure that they do 2 things: gun control and divide us based on race. Plain and simple.
It's control.
And as a sports fan, and I know you guys are sports fans, I don't know about Cole and Kevin, but
I am wall of sports right there, my dude.
All right,
And he's a LeBron fan.
Only one who's not here. I'm the outlier.
So here's, and I used to be a huge sports fan. I really don't watch much sports anymore. And every time I turn on ESPN, I can't watch it anymore. I cannot watch ESPN because they keep everything about them is BLM. And here's the deal. When something fails so drastically, like Black Lives Matter as the organization, as the slogan, there's a million different things that somebody can start. You can start something like, we love black people, support black people, hashtag. Well, you can do whatever you want, but Black Lives Matter at this point, if you are still wearing the Black Lives Matter gear in every window on Omaha, Nebraska, and any of the storefronts, they have the Black Lives Matter signs, which I was told in some ways were to actually divert people from destroying their windows, which says something about an organization, almost like raising the flag, like, we're cool with you guys, don't worry about it. That means that you are trying to show solidarity with the terrorist organization. Like, if you don't put the sign up, you might get your shit broken. That is it. That is the definition of a terrorist organization. It's not like anybody has in their windows like white pride, like, oh, I'm not going to mess with them, I'm going to leave them alone. It makes zero sense at the way we have gone about racism and white supremacy in this country. So here's my question based on that. With sports being so quote unquote woke and essentially bought and paid for now by Black Lives Matter and supporting that organization, how do we convince people, because all they're seeing, that Black Lives Matter has to stop being a part of our vocabulary?
You don't. And I'm going to give her a shout out. Candace Owens gave me this great piece of advice. You let your audience make the choice for themselves. Put the information out. Do it in a way that they can do their own research. People are going to follow it. People are not. That's it. And I understand the frustration. Like, I get it. You want people to like, what are you doing? How do you believe this stuff? But it's ultimately up to the audience to decide what's reality and what's not.
Well, and here's why sports is becoming such a big topic. That's the last thing they have uniting people.
Yeah.
And so if they can actually take down sports, because if you go and watch sports, like watch the end of the football season when you could actually have fans in the crowd, same with the playoffs right now with the NBA, you actually have people coming together and unifying again under something.
Yep. And
they want sports to be a reason why people are going to be divided. So that's why they're attacking sports. That's why BLM is sponsoring all this. That's why all this is being pushed, is it's creating the last place that we can create division to keep this agenda going.
But they're running headfirst into the brick wall of capitalism.
Yeah.
And they are actually hemorrhaging viewers. And the more this goes, China's going to stop showing any of this stuff because China doesn't want Black Lives Matter all over. China doesn't want anything relating to protests or organizations. But it's going to hit him as soon as, like, this is the thing about LeBron that I've noticed is he says the exact same thing that Michael Jordan says when he said Republicans buy shoes too, in that he is saying what he thinks he needs to say in order to maintain his revenue stream. So when China comes up, he doesn't say anything because you can't say anything. But when anything else comes up, all of a sudden, He says support Black Lives Matter, all this other stuff. Mind you, his actions do not reflect any of that. This is a man who has never had a true scandal. He's done nothing but be an exemplar of what it means to be an outstanding father. He has built a great school in his community. He is, by all means, he has done absolutely marvelous things with the money and the wealth that he's had, except he opens his mouth and he says stupid stuff because he really does care a lot about the money, and he always says the wrong thing. So that's what it's going to end up playing it out, is that conservatives actually do contribute a lot. There's a lot of men on the conservative side that just adore sports. I'm well in that. I spend time researching sports just so I can have something to watch on the weekends. Like, I'm huge into F1 for no other reason than, hey, it's on Sunday mornings, right? So there's a lot of people like that, and I think that we're going to realize that, and they're going to, once it starts really hitting their pocketbooks, you're going to start hearing people be like, all right, so.
Well, I also want to show and the next thing we're going to talk about is CRT. I want to show this video that Suni posted earlier, because it literally the person in charge of the country that made it a holiday. By the way, that holiday ended up causing them to leave work early in government so that they could not discuss some issues with the V word that was happening. So they postponed that until tomorrow because it was so important for them to celebrate celebrate Juneteenth instead of actually investigating some issues that they're actually willing to look at with the V word. So this is fun.
Myocarditis.
Going down in Texas on Juneteenth, the first major massacre, literally speaking, of the Black Wall Street, right? Years ago.
Let's replay this.
He's going down in Texas on Juneteenth, right? The first major massacre, literally speaking, of the Black Wall Street, right? Years ago. He's going down in Texas on Juneteenth, right? The first major massacre, literally speaking, of the Black Wall Street, right?
Okay.
He knows the Tulsa race riots.
So this is a man that literally a few days before made this a national holiday, and this asshat, also known as the president of the free world, the leader of our country, does not even know the difference between Juneteenth, which is the true day of emancipation of the slaves, and the Tulsa riots. This is, and people. Anybody else want to take this one?
Look. A lot of people don't even understand what Juneteenth is. And I'm one of those people because it's never been widely celebrated amongst the Black community. That's a fact. It's been celebrated in Texas, and singular to Texas, because of the laws that happened. Whatever happened in Texas, they had Juneteenth. He completely put together Black Wall Street, Tulsa riots, and he's talking about Juneteenth, and none of those things have anything to do with each other. It is virtue signaling. I said it when he signed it. I said it when Trump tried to put that crap in the platinum plan. Stop virtue signaling. Give us what we actually need, which is reform in the inner city. If you're not going to do that, then keep it moving. Like, seriously. I'm calling people on the right too. All these people, happy Juneteenth. Y'all didn't even know what it was a year and a half ago. Stop it, bro.
It's like a segregated Independence Day at this point. It's like,
thank you.
I've got no idea, mate. I've got no problem with it being a national holiday, but this is, again, this is on this laundry list of like 78 things that need to change, all the way from education in the inner city to getting rid of 1619 plan and getting rid of critical race theory and empowering Black people instead of telling them they're victims. Like, somewhere down the list, you could be like, you know what, we should probably make Juneteenth a holiday. So for people that don't know, and if Joe Biden is watching right now, because I know it's past 6 or 7 p.m., so he's probably going to have to be asleep because this is where that Sundowners kicks in. Juneteenth, officially now Juneteenth, National Independence Day, was historically known as Jubilee Day. I was one of those quote-unquote white folk that knew what this was like 5 years ago because I did the research and I live in Texas. And all of a sudden we started learning about it. I think it's interesting and important. So it's a federal holiday as of now, commemorating the emancipation of enslaved African Americans. It's observed for celebrating African American culture. It originated in Galveston, Texas, and it's been celebrated annually on June 19th in various parts of the United States since 1866. It essentially is commemoration of the anniversary date of June 19th, 1865, the announcement of General Order Number 3 by the Union Army General Gordon Granger, proclaiming and enforcing freedom on enslaved people in Texas, which is the last state of the Confederacy with institutional slavery. To sum it up, after the Emancipation Proclamation, the word didn't get around very well. People just automatically think, oh, Civil War was over? Cool. That means all the slaves were freed. No, then there was the indentured servants, and then this wasn't like they all of a sudden leaned back and put it on TV and were like, oh, guys, we're good. We're allowed to leave now. Like there was no mass information. So essentially that was when the last set of people in the United States were told they were free. Again, I think it's an important date in American history. That's just part of American history. But at the same time, the president that virtue signaled and essentially uses the platform of Black people can't use the internet, Black people can't figure out how to vote, and Black people, if they don't vote for him, they're not Black, doesn't even know the difference between the Tulsa riots and this holiday that he created days before.
Can I challenge your thought really quick?
Yeah, absolutely. Always.
Really quick.
Yeah.
It's okay. I'll give you, it's a national holiday, but the environment that we're in, where white supremacy is the number one national threat in America, where Black people are walking targets for police officers, where slavery is talked about non-stop. Can you not see how this is completely counterproductive? Just on a level of American citizens, for the sake of not being divided anymore. This is going to divide this country further. It is merely a tool that they're using to divide us.
Oh yeah, no, I get that. I think the timing is no. I agree with you. I think it's something interesting, and this is part of the issues with American history, what we've learned in school. Which again, I think what they're propagating in CRT is next. I think they've been saying that CRT is essentially teaching this, which it's not. Basic Black American history and Black history as a part of American history and combining it as one thing as American history, that's fine. But they literally are using this shit as a guise where, you know what? I personally think people should know about Juneteenth. They should also know that in Iowa, where they quote unquote said that they were blocking Black history, should know that was literally a lie from not only CNN, but Fox too. They had one reporter that came on and said, well, they're blocking race education. No, if you actually look at the bill, it's legitimately simply blocking the ability for educators to be forced to learn this before they go into their classrooms. That does not mean they don't teach Black history. They completely lied about it. So all these different things I think should be covered. I think we should learn about it. I agree with Sunni. It's really weird timing. It's like Joe Biden's in office and he's the great white knight to Black people, saying that all these things are wrong with the Black community and I made Juneteenth a holiday. I don't know what it is. I don't even know what my wife's name is anymore, but let's just keep putting me in front of a world stage. Why not?
Well, yeah, they have to continue to appeal to emotion, because they can't appeal based on logic, because they don't put forth any policies that actually improve Black communities. They don't. None of them do. So what you saw in the last election was you saw Donald Trump's approval, and he got votes from basically every minority community went up. Yes. The only thing you saw drop in was the white male. And so Shelby Steele talks about this idea that when the Civil Rights Act passed, white supremacy was annihilated. And what happened along with it was especially with white liberals, is they think that they have to re-achieve that moral superiority. So by saying, oh, look, I acknowledge that as a white person, I have it better, but you can't do that. I'm better than you. It's all about this virtue signaling bullcrap. But they have to continue to appeal to emotion, because they cannot appeal on anything else, and their grip is slipping. More and more people in Black and Hispanic communities are asking the questions of the Democratic Party. Wait a second, you've been in charge of our communities for 50 to 80 years in some places, and nothing's gotten better. Oh, you gave me Juneteenth. You gave me Juneteenth. We're good. Okay, sorry. We can go back to it.
And all it's going to do is create more racism. And that's kind of what Sunni was hinting at. Like, I think the Juneteenth, I think this is, it's just like we talk about diversions. It's like a little dip in the water. Like, if they start getting into the changing of the flag, like Macy Gray talking about, like the flag doesn't represent us, and these small motions to have multicolored stars. It's so pointless. That's the whole point, is that our country should not be based on color, and you're wanting to add that. So what is that? What's the byproduct of that? It's going to be a bunch of middle ground conservative Americans that have not been racist for 2 generations that are all of a sudden going to go, fuck this shit.
Yep.
No, and it's going to start separating. It's going to cause a racist nation again. And the part of this whole education that I was hearing, and I can't remember what the direction, I got to look for the article and the news story, but they were essentially saying that white people need to forgive the transgressions of their ancestors. I'm like, I am Italian and Jewish. What in God's name are you talking about? Like what? How the hell are telling me that I need to constantly daily wake up and learn more about my whiteness and my privilege? Here's the deal. There's people that dislike people because they are Latino. There is people that dislike black people. There's people that dislike gay people. There's people that especially in this world, there's people that hate the white male. There is so much hate going on from crappy people. It's got nothing to do with color. It's got to do with shitty people and good people. And that's plain and simple. That's it. It's got nothing to do with the color. And they're using the color to make sure that they continue to force hate upon each other, force differences, force change, force not good change, but bad change. All right, I want to know about CRT. So Cole or Kevin, who wants to go first? Because I want the actual, give me a pie chart. Not really, but you know what I mean. Give me a breakdown of what CRT is in a nutshell, Cole. And maybe, you know what? I'm going to play devil's advocate. I'm going to be a liberal going but. So go ahead.
Oh, I'd love that. Okay, first off, what we have to realize is that critical race theory is an offshoot of critical theory. And critical theory is a school of thought that actually came out of the Frankfurt School. I'm sure you guys are familiar with the Frankfurt School. The members of that actually put out the most seminal writings of critical theory. Okay, and the main sticking point of critical theory as it is seen and read today is rejecting meta-narratives. And what that means is saying that the story of our country, the story of our race, the stories that build our identities are nonsense. Now, you can see how this can make a little bit of sense. Okay, maybe we made this stuff up. But what they take as the biggest meta-narrative of all is capitalism. These people really hate capitalism. This is in all the literature. It's not me espousing, it's a Marxist takeover. It's literally in the book I have about critical theory sitting on my coffee table. Critical race theory is critical theory applied to race, which says that race is also a narrative, that it's BS, that it's a social construction, and that it's a social construction that revolves around power. It's not real. It's the boogeyman. It's a fairy tale. This is the central tenet of CRT, of critical theory. And I don't want to go too much further because, man, this stuff is dense, but that gives you the base.
But I'm playing just if everybody's wondering here, I'm playing the liberal. Put the hat off to the side. So, Cole, from what I understand, is our country does not properly teach Black history. So isn't this just simply, you said they're talking about capitalism, but that just doesn't seem true because ultimately our kids have been lied to for so long that I just think that when I read about critical race theory, it's just about teaching kids, true Black history. Isn't that the truth?
Well, that's interesting, Anthony the liberal, because critical theory and critical race theory, once again, pretty much says there's no such thing as race and that it's a meta-narrative that we need to reject. So how can we have a history of a people who aren't technically a people because this very theory says by its nature that we need to reject the idea of race except in terms of power? So you might need to define what you mean by Black history.
Like all the information about, the fact that that Black people were never slave owners and that Black people were, they've always been oppressed, and that any time that a Black person tried to, do anything for themselves, they couldn't do it because of white oppression, all the way up until last week.
Yeah, I've seen the amount of heads I've seen explode when I relay the idea, they're saying, yeah, the first slaves were bought in 1619. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Do you know the name of the man who bought the first slaves? His name was Anthony Johnson, and he was a black man, and he was the first slave. Man. He was the first slave owner in America.
Where did they get the slaves? From other African tribes.
By the way, just as an aside, do you guys remember when Nancy Pelosi and her crew put on the scarves and took the knee after the George Floyd thing?
Yeah, the transatlantic kente cloth.
Yeah, I turned to my friend and I said, I guarantee you they know so little, and it's going to be so ironic that they're wearing the sash of one of the slave trading tribes, and they totally freaking were. But that's the virtue signaling. No, because so like what they try to teach is this idea that you get this meta narrative of these great wonderful founding fathers, and we know that slavery is evil, yet these guys own slaves. And so critical race theory, what it ends up teaching is, because it teaches the same no meta narratives like critical theory does, except it was a legal theory created by Derek Bell and Hannah. I forget a couple of the other ones, but it came out of Harvard Law School in the 1970s, and they use it as a legal theory to argue the law in a way which draws on the idea that systems were designed with the intent, while not having the wording, the intent behind them was to oppress minorities specifically. So. What they do is they take all these arguments and they stop all analysis at race. Those ones right there.
Oh, see, I thought they were just supporting the Jamaican bobsled team. That's my bad. I didn't know. That's my bad.
Dude, no,
I want more liberal Russo.
Liberal Russo. There we go.
Okay, so
I made that.
But I gotta have another question. Did you make that yourself, Suni?
I did. When they did that, this is when I first started podcasting. I was like, I have to make something, and I made Wiggers with Attitude. It was amazing. I got so much flack for it, but it was great.
I'm not gonna lie, Suni. I don't really know much about you because I don't watch black conservatives because I don't think they're really black. But I think that's cultural appropriation, and I don't think you should have a voice because only black people I listen to can have a voice. So I got another question about CRT. If you guys are saying that CRT really isn't black history and that they're teaching this, to break down this capitalistic, whatever, subcontracting, you're talking about meta stuff, whatever. So my question is, why would they lie to us like this? Why is it? Because if CRT, in my opinion, should be taught at every school in America, because kids should know that black kids are just as equal as white kids. Or whatever, Corn Pop said. He told me that. He said, they're just as smart and bright as white kids. I don't even know what that was about. But tell me, why would they lie to us?
Well, first off, they're too stupid to understand their own arguments. They don't realize that their arguments defeat themselves. See, Kevin did a good thing on this, is that, here's like the regular people who are fed CRT, and they're like, oh, it's black history. Here are the people who like kind of understand it, and they're like, it's about getting rid of oppression. And here are the people who like really understand it, who are like, holy shit, look at all the logical contradictions, and this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
right?
It's like you have these intellectual, like the average person who's doesn't want to be intellectual. They don't want to dive into philosophical theory and all this other crap. They just want to watch their TV and live their lives. You said something earlier, like it seems that there's no logic behind it, and it's because the logics are contradictory. They're specifically meant to be so that your pseudo intellectual, your midwit, as they're called a lot, they will be able to understand the concepts being discussed, but they're not going to be able to understand them well enough to actually be able to point out the fallacies, or for some other reason they're pressured into going along with it, or they give into the emotional appeal of it. But your average person and your intellectual, like, those logical contradictions are going to be plain as day to basically everyone. It's for example, there's a reason why the average Joe is just sitting there like, wait a second, I thought racism was just not liking someone because of their race. What's reverse racism? Isn't that just racism? Wait a second. Slow down. Stop talking to me about power dynamics and all this other crap. Racism is racism. And that's the roadblock they run into. That's why they're kind of freaking out that critical race theory is being brought to the forefront, because it does not make sense. And this is why I'm kind of more optimistic. We are confronting critical race theory right now on the mainstream, putting it front and center, and its absolute bullshittery is being exposed on the brightest stage possible, something that they never wanted. It always had to be kept at that level of like the people who want to be seen as intellectual but aren't actually really there for it, if you get what I'm saying. And so it's really what we're seeing right now, and why I have so optimism about it is because like the people who can really understand what's going on and the people who don't really care about it are going to be able to spot the fallacies just like right away, because it doesn't make any sense.
Well, I appreciate you guys. I think I'm done asking questions. I mean, I want you to know I probably will, one ear and out the other because you're white, so you know nothing about race. So I'm gonna
identify as a black person. Don't worry.
Well,
I'm a black transgender.
That changes everything. Now we're talking. But the last thing, I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to take what you told me and I'm going to cross-reference it with news on CNN. So I'm sure that we're going to, end up on the same page on that one. The MSNBC and CNN, I'm sure will tell me the exact same thing. But I only could listen to a black person on those networks talk about it. So I'm going to ask Don Lemon.
Go ask Don Lemon.
Okay, so my real opinion on CRT, and again, you had a lot of information, what CRT really stands for, and ultimately the capitalism thing is huge. It's also painting a separation, and it's funny. I am not seeing, unless they are a news anchor on one of the major networks, I am not seeing, or somebody that's like ultra outspoken on their page, I'm not seeing any black people come out in favor of CRT unless they are on a platform that is trying to propagate it. It's mostly white liberals trying to teach it. I don't see any black, like all of the outspoken black people that are talking about it that are not anybody that you've seen before are literally going, this is garbage. I don't want my kids hearing that there is superiority between the races. This is what we got away from. We're literally judging people now on the color of their skin instead of content of their character, and that's the character, and that's what CRT does in a nutshell. You guys broke it down a little bit more, and I want to make sure we get somebody that is liberal that believes this. That's what I was trying to do on this show. We might have Yosra might come back and ask some questions about it, but I just think that it is such a blatant disrespect to the black community to essentially paint them as somebody historically that has been so oppressed. Not that they've been so oppressed as American history will show, but so oppressed to the point where the white person has such ridiculous superiority over them, because psychologically you're going to take 5-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds, and they're always going to feel inferior. You are teaching inferiority. You are not teaching equity or equality.
And it goes both ways, because not only are you teaching that the minority kid is inferior in some ways, like, oh, because you got black skin, you're not going very far in life, despite the fact that the main people talking about this are Barack Obama, Oprah Winfrey, all these hyper wealthy, Michelle Obama, who I don't even want to hear a word of oppression out of your freaking mouth. But what you get is, you're also then telling young white kids at 5, 10, 12 years old that you are inherently evil. You have this evil within you that you need to apologize for. You are an oppressor. You are the descendant of evil colonizers, and it's destructive all around. And what you're seeing, and I know you guys saw this video, it was a couple weeks ago. There's this young black father with his young daughter there talking about how they hate critical race theory. It's like, all my daughter knows how to do is love people based on who they are, and if they're nice and if they're kind, and all these, if they're funny and this kind of stuff. And that's what you're going to end up seeing, because it makes no sense. That's Martin Luther King Jr. was not lying when he said that we should have a world where people are judged on the content of their character, not the color of their skin. And yet they will tell you that is racist to say. And that should just end the argument right there.
100%. All right, can we move on to the transgender athlete? We got a couple more things going on. Casey Suni, do you got anything else on CRT?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
That's it.
I think we're going to have to bring back Anthony the Liberal once in a while. I think that was a fun little character. I think that was good.
He was great. He was the best. I want to hear more of him.
Oh, good.
All right, here we go. Well, guys, we got a transgender athlete. No, I'm kidding. I can't even be. This is ridiculous. So, transgender athlete. I'm not going to say this athlete's name because I don't want to give them more credit than I've already done on my post. Wanted to, and they're an alternative to the national team. BMX rider, transgender. Wants to the goal, and this was about a year ago. That is accurate, 100% accurate. A year ago, in an article, or a year and a half ago, an article said they wanted to be on the podium. Now, I want to dispel some myths. This wasn't said this week. This was about a year and a half ago. Said I wanted to reach the podium so that I could burn the American flag in terms of trans rights and the way that the American public treats the trans community. So, what do you, go ahead, Suni, I want you to start with this one.
This, I don't know, man. I don't have anything nice to say. I don't. And I'm trying to limit my vulgar language, but here's what I will say. I think it's amazing how we can attack American culture. I think it's amazing how we can attack traditional culture, traditional values, and say our values are hateful, you guys are mean, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. But the same people that target us for having our traditional values can then go be hateful to an entire country and want to burn a flag. And they get to remain on their platforms and do whatever they want to do while people like me get canceled. I just want to figure out, why is it okay?
If we have such an oppressive country, how would these people be allowed to compete and allowed to say these things? So this comment was a year and a half ago, and she was still being allowed, this athlete was still being allowed to compete at a national level. So I hope this person understands that if they were in China or Russia and spoke out against their government like this, Iran, Iraq, pick it, they would not, even Israel, they would not be competing at a high level. They would be done. They'd be canceled. Yep. So if they think that we have it, that this person has it so bad, they are severely mistaken. Casey, go ahead.
I'm going to correct you. In some of those countries, they would be dead.
Yeah.
They wouldn't even be alive.
Yeah.
And it's disgusting to me that we allow these people to represent our country and they want to disrespect our country like that. Now, we are given those rights in our country. We are not a communist country, so you do have those rights. However, I do wish people would understand you have those rights in respect that you would respect the country and the flag. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, I don't know what we do. We just got to let the American people handle it. And unfortunately, we're the ones, like Suni said, we get canceled, we get silenced, we get all the ridicule. They don't. And so until that turns around, I don't see any of this slowing down.
I think that I'm first and foremost incredibly, I can at least feel blessed that they live in a country where they can do that and not have to worry about being thrown in jail or killed or whatever. And I think it is a very much a testament to just how wonderful our country is that this person can say, I hate my country so much, I want to burn my flag if I win the gold medal and commit the greatest embarrassment I can think of to them. And they can. That's the sign of a great nation. The problem is I would hope that anyone standing on that stage holding a gold medal would see that itself is a signifier of how great the country is and be appreciative of it. They wouldn't want to burn the flag. I can't, if you want to go burn the flag, I'm glad you have the right. I disagree with it, and I would hope that you wouldn't want to. But if you feel such a way that you want to, that is your right as an American. And you happen to luckily live in one of the few countries on planet Earth where you can get away with doing that and not face any consequence. And I'm going to celebrate that, even if you don't.
Yeah, and I have to say this because this rings clear to me very much, and then I'll let you talk, Cole. This rings very much Kaepernick to me. So I have a very similar opinion, I think, to Kevin in that sense. Like, what's great about this country is that you can say these things. So when I was very critical of Kaepernick taking a knee, I gave his come from was bad. I think the fact that he never voted was bad. I think the fact that he was really never oppressed was it just wasn't a look. The fact that he wore pig socks a month before about, police officers being pigs, it just was a bad look. And here's the deal. I was told that I was not allowed to critique his right of protest. The same as this. I feel the same situation. Look, I think that this athlete should be allowed to compete because we are in the United States of America. The catch-22 is the freedoms that this idiot is complaining about are the same freedoms that make America the country that they should be proud of. So I was yelled at for Kaepernick, and here's the hypocrisy in it, is I was saying I disagreed with his right to protest, but I was told in the United States of America, I'm not allowed to disagree. That's not how the First Amendment works. That's not how freedom of speech works. So in the case of this person that's saying they want to burn the flag, I believe, and this is where, we start to slightly differ, more power to this person to compete, but I'm going to root with every fiber in my body that they fail flat on their face. I think they're an idiot. I'm allowed to call them an idiot. I'm allowed to think that they're stupid. I'm allowed to think that their logic is flawed, and I'm allowed to think that they don't deserve to be an American. That's my opinion. At the same token, they should be allowed to compete because that is what makes America the country that they are so ridiculously non-happy with for no apparent reason, or I don't even know the word. It sucks. It's bullshit.
I agree.
Yeah,
Cole,
Russo, I think yours is the most like layered opinion on this, and I kind of came to this the other day, like well, I shouldn't talk crap about people who, are expressing their free speech, burning the flag, doing these things whatsoever. And then I kind of came to your idea and thought, wait a minute, I'm allowed to talk as much crap about these people as I want. Even people who say that free speech shouldn't be allowed in the U.S. are allowed to say that if they want. And it's all under the umbrella of free speech. And honestly, it does make me very appreciative of what's happening in this country, of what we can do, of what we can say. As for transgender athletes competing as men or women, and that's another story. That's my qualm here, is that I'd be pissed if I was a woman. I don't even know which athlete this is, but
two separate issues. One is you're thinking of the New Zealand weightlifter chick that's about to compete with the chicks. But yeah.
Yep. So I think we can sit here and talk as much crap as we want, and it's totally legitimate. If they want to get there and burn the flag, well, you have to comply with arson laws and not burn things in public venues. So there's that, at least. It's like, okay, you can make whatever free expression laws you want, and not violate them by burning the flag, but don't do it somewhere where there might be a wildfire, where there's children or people or toxic smoke. So. Yeah.
You know what? I'm tired of seeing this old classic, like, flag burning. Can someone do a Katniss Everdeen situation where they like have it draped over their shoulders and they spin and it just disappears in a poof of flame? Like, if you're going to do it, at least add some flair to it. Jeez.
That's actually what Kamala is going to do when she finally goes to the border. She's literally going to show up and just flames spin, whatever. I'm here. All right. So is anybody else on the transgender athlete, or can we move on, that we hope this person fails miserably, doesn't actually get to be on the team?
Yeah, well, I do want to point out that was a separate person. They have the separate person now of the New Zealand transgender athlete who was a weightlifter up until like 2 years ago in the male division that is now going to be competing with the women, which is yay, easy gold medal. I should do that. What sport do you guys think I should transition and start playing?
Well, you're not athletically gifted to beat women anyway.
I mean,
dang, shots fired.
All right, bro.
Maybe you should try the curling team. I'm just kidding. I'd be down to do some curling. Let's see. Yeah, no, this one was more about the burning the flag. Yes, the New Zealand athlete, which ironically enough, to me, that's a complete failure to that person to not be ranked number 1 in the world. It's like, you were a dude 2 years ago. Like, I think you're doing something wrong. You're on the wrong hormone blockers at that point. All right, so we're not going to talk about the woke mob coming for Lin-Manuel Miranda. That was about a week ago anyways. If you want to check it out, Bill Maher does a great piece on cancel culture and the fact that, like, he didn't use enough of the right ethnicity. And it's like, really? And he bent. That's the problem. Even he goes, my bad, I'll readdress it. The movie's got 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's phenomenal, supposedly. I haven't watched it, but it's just, we become a joke as a country. We're so worried about like these little itty bitty things. Meanwhile, you've got China's Navy building the strongest Navy in the world. And here we are in the country making sure somebody that has both their genital parts gets every equal treatment when they enter the military. It's scary. So anyways, moving on. So this is our final story of the night. We're talking about the $5.2 billion federal dollars for rent forgiveness. This is a federal $5.2 billion grant for federal rent forgiveness in the state of California. So this is COVID grants, etc. And Gavin Newsom broke the news to his constituents in California that he is giving $5.2 billion in rent forgiveness. What in the baker's F? Who wants to take this hot pile of steaming wannabe Batman Bruce Wayne garbage?
Just get the fuck out of that office, Jesus!
Man, I don't even have words.
You know, I'm going to lead into the story and let you guys talk. And I think I brought this in our group chat. Casey didn't know this. I didn't know this. Does anybody in the audience realize that Gavin Newsom's wife in 2001 to 2006 was Kimberly Guilfoyle,
Yes, it
whatever it
was.
which is now the woman who is engaged to Don Jr. I had no idea. Like, Don Jr. is doing the ultimate okey doke FU right now.
Well,
It's crazy. Go ahead.
She was a prosecutor in San Francisco, and he was rising through the ranks to eventually become mayor of San Francisco. So they were like a power couple destined for each other. So that's kind of how that ended up working out. But I think it is incredibly hilarious that Don Jr. is getting sloppy seconds from Gavin Newsom right now. Although I will say, just to caveat that, they are both wonderful people in all honesty. Like Kimberly Guilfoyle, I've met her a couple times. She is an absolutely wonderful woman, but it does make sense since that was a power couple and there's some, power couple tendencies there, it seems.
And he's she's robbing the cradle. He's like 40, I think 42. She's like 51. Anyways.
She's looking great for 50 plus. Holy crap.
Ooh, Kevin's got a little bit of, all right. So with that said, he's about to break off a piece of his meta. All right. But real talk on this. So you got Gavin Newsom making this thing, and somebody asked, essentially, let me explain how it works. So they're going to take the people that could not pay their rent because of 87 different reasons, including the fact that California is drastically overinflated and cost of living is ridiculous. People that haven't been paying their rent, they're going to forgive all of it. So that money then goes to the landlords. Some of those landlords have very large buildings that probably are BFFs with Gavin Newsom. Other people own buildings that are probably just getting by, struggled last year as well. Probably people that think Gavin Newsom is an asshat and don't want him back in the office of governor. But now they might go, so is this part of a massive re-election campaign to make sure that them getting rid of it doesn't happen? I think 100%. And it's also a gigantic waste of federal dollars, in my opinion. Who wants to take this one first?
I guess as a Californian.
Yeah, you go first.
The resident California, I feel bad for my state. I really do. They're robbed. Like, first and foremost, they're having these huge issues with rent inflation because they cannot build homes anywhere near the rate that they need to, mainly because of the insane amount of regulations that comes with trying to do literally anything in California. Anytime you try to do any kind of development, residential or commercial, you eventually reach the phase of environmental impact. And that could take, those take years to get past, 2 to 3 years to fully prove, hey, what I'm doing is going to be okay for the environment. So they can't keep up with the housing prices. So to make up for it, and to make up for the fact that Gavin Newsom has kept the state shut down for about 10 months longer than anybody had any right to do, he's just now robbing from all the other American people to pay off this debt to try to remain in office. This is, in effect, the National Democratic Party trying to bribe the Californian people into re-electing this guy, despite the election going on right now. And it just speaks to the absolute insane amount of corruption that is going on, and how hard these people will fight to keep that hold, that power that they have taken. They never stop fighting, and they will never stop clawing and gouging out eyes in order to get there. And even if it means stealing from the residents of 49 other states to pay off their own.
Yeah. And he's a piece of garbage. So
he is a horrible human.
They're using federal money. Wait a minute. They're using federal money to pay the landlords.
Yeah, it's great.
That's what it is?
Good, very good time. It's very good.
I thought it was just saying legally, screw you to the landlords, and sorry, you're not going to get your money. These guys are forgiven, and you guys have to take a pay cut, which I was okay with. Personally, there's my little lefty tendencies coming out once in a while, like, man, screw landlords. Sometimes I feel that way. But damn,
Cole,
wow, that is the dumbest.
But Cole, say put 5 more years on you. Your books are going well. You've started to invest in rental properties, And next thing you
There you
know, we have COVID 37 is out, and Fauci is still is the leader of the free world, and you are unable to. You've got 10 tenants in 10 places. You finally made it. You've got your own nest egg, and you've got 10 people that can't pay rent, and you might be somebody that's charging a fair amount. What about in that case? What happens to you when all of a sudden they're all behind 3 to 7 months on rent, which means you're still paying mortgage on these properties, or heat and all the different things? What happens?
Well, there you go. You just got rid of my lefty tendencies. Thanks. It's all it takes. I just need a
Get on
good
the
argument.
wall.
I'm not gonna be a dick about it and like, oh well.
Well, you're first against the wall, Cole. That's all you need to know.
Eat the rich. Do.
Now, and I know Casey's going to talk next, but I also think this. I'd be very curious to watch where that money goes, because I'm always suspect. Like, let's see that $5.2 billion is designated for, but who's got the lawyers and the accountants that'll make that paperwork a hell of a lot easy? The mega rich, large, complex owners that can do that have a lawyer on payroll, whereas the Coles of the world that, although they have a great vocabulary, they probably have a little bit more trouble with that ridiculous amount of paperwork, just to be honest. Casey, what's up?
So the big thing is like no one. We just look at this as spending. We have to stop doing this in our country. Like, we can't be spending this amount of money. We're going to be getting checks in 3 weeks sent to us for all adults that have kids that make under $150,000 for a household. They're going to get money just for their kids sent to them every month from the government. That's setting the expectation that you're going to be living off the government, and people are going to get used to that. We can't do that. We also can't be going and taking a whole bunch of federal money and bailing out our landlords, because the landlords also own money on their property too. And so there's issues there. Most likely those are government loans they got. And so all they're doing is just putting money back into their pockets. And so this is a full circle money spending spree that our government constantly does, and it pads the pockets of certain individuals, and they just wait until the citizens are oppressed enough, and they're just like, oh, okay, yeah, you got plenty of money, government, just give it to me. And no, we don't. We have to stop the spending, and we got to start doing better at that. And we got to start holding everybody in Congress and on our local levels accountable and make sure we slow this down. Inflation is already high enough.
There you go. I was about to say that. I think we're going to experience one of the worst recessions in history with the amount of spending that they're doing.
Mm-hmm. The inflation's going to be bad, but I'm a little bit on the more optimistic side, simply because there's a huge labor shortage. Usually when you have that, you don't feed right into a recession, but the recession is going to come from the fact that the government just keeps adding zeros to bank account numbers. And so, but what we're going to see in response, and we're going to have to get used to it and buy your property now, although I'm not a real estate advisor, we're going to see the Fed is going to dramatically raise interest rates. They have to do everything they can to start to hit these, and it's going to be rough. It's going to be very rough for a couple of years. There are ways to mitigate the effects, because again, this recession is not naturally caused. It's unnatural. It's an unnaturally caused recession. The economy was perfectly fine beforehand. So it will be able to recover, but it is going to be a very rough recovery.
Do you know the last time we had the inflation rates that we have right now?
2008.
2008. Just giving a heads up.
But at the same level.
We're at the same levels. But I do get Kevin's point. I do think there is some balancing features that we did not have then. I do think it'll moderate. But again, I have a belief that this isn't about a recession now. I have a belief that this is, again, if the Trump mentality doesn't get back into office in 2024, that concept of the way that you propagate the economy, I have a feeling that this is going to cause a 20-year cool down. So instead of maybe a blunt force trauma to the economy, I think it's going to essentially put our growing economy into an ice bath for the next 2 decades, which people don't realize. Right. Which people don't understand has a greater effect. The people that have been investing their whole lives, if inflation is going up and their money is not increasing in their retirement accounts, and this is not the rich people, this is the middle class that has been putting their 401ks away. If they're 55 now and they're 75 in 20 years and there's been no growth in their accounts, they are essentially going to be saying, well, I got to work until I'm 90 years old at this point. And we're going to be seeing that.
It's that the government is every time the government adds another zero to a big bank's account, that is actual theft from people who have their money, who are just saving their money. Inflation is stealing. It devalues your money. And if you are not invested in some kind of portfolio that builds up based on inflation, the government is literally stealing from your parents and your grandparents.
Yeah. Agreed.
Let me address this one comment real quick. They're like, well, Trump pissed away $10 trillion to mostly left-wing causes, big tech and high finance. Like, you can go back. When you say we should have been this concerned 3 years ago, I can tell you I've been this concerned since I've been involved in politics.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's why I don't associate myself mostly with the right or the left, is because they don't care about what they spend. They just spend.
Spending always skyrockets under a Republican administration because the Republicans don't try to stop it. So
don't come on here with that righty lefty stuff, because nobody believes in that here. I am an equal opportunist. I talk about Trump, I talk about Biden, I talk about the right and the left.
Oh yeah,
we know it definitely didn't start November 20th. It didn't start when Trump got in office, and it didn't start when Obama got in office. This has been an ongoing trend for years. So there's equal blame to go around. Simmer down.
I'm not listening to you, Suni. I don't know if you know this. If you don't know that Trump was doing the same thing and you guys just thought that he was a golden gift on a statue, you're full of crap, because I have Trump derangement syndrome, and he is the reason that Joe Biden can't read a teleprompter off his notes. It's Trump.
It's really funny when I'm talking to like college kids, and like I'll point out how stupid some of the leftist policies coming out are, and they'll turn to me and they'll go, "But well, Trump." I'm like, "Well, I didn't really like Trump."
What about it?
Like, okay, cool. Let's go back to your guy then. We're like,
hey, Trump had his pants on backwards last week. And then, you know what? It was disproven by Snopes, and which is really funny because I was waiting for one of my Republican friends to say Snopes was the reason that it was false. And I was like, oh, you always say Snopes is full of shit. Well, guess what? You can't use Snopes if you just, whatever. Trump was wearing his pants backwards. And you guys think he's coming back in August. Y'all are stupid. The election was perfect.
I do love how somehow, some way, Trump is some kind of fascist authoritarian monster that's like some Machiavellian like puppet master behind the scenes.
He is not smart enough in the least for this,
yet
dude.
Simultaneously somehow oversaw the freest, fairest, most non-corrupt election in American history. I'm just all right.
I want to give. So I've known a few people that have gotten to meet Trump, and I hung out with somebody this last week that. If anybody knows the basic story, it's the guy that was on the airplane that pulled when the window broke and the woman kind of got sucked out the window. He was the one that was help pulling her in, so he got to meet Trump, and he's a conservative. He is the same as all of us, that we all agree that Trump has his flaws. But I'm like, what was meeting him like? And he goes, and this guy's big. This guy's bigger than me. He's like 6'5", 200 and something pounds. He also said, by the way, in person, Trump is not heavy. The camera adds a lot of weight. They're like, he's like 15, 20 pounds overweight. He's not that big, which I'm like, really? Because whatever. That's totally diversion. But anyways, so I said to him, what was it like meeting him? And he goes, it was very important to me to see how he shook my hand, how he looked me in the eye, how he had a conversation. He never looked above me, looked into me. And I've heard the exact same thing from everybody I know that's actually met him, that genuinely the guy is a human being. And, of course, there's issues with business and politics, but he treats human beings like human beings. Like, if people knew any stories about Hillary Clinton, she didn't even look at people working for her. And I've heard the same about Barack Obama in a lot of ways. I've heard Michelle Obama was a little nicer, but that was about it.
My mom, in her chemo clinic back in the day, one of the guys was ex-Secret Service, and he used to tell us horror stories about how Hillary. Secret Service guys, if anybody looked her in the eye, she would scream at them, and like you had to learn all these rules about making sure you weren't in her way, and certain people weren't allowed in certain rooms when she was in there and stuff like that. So it was like, but I've heard the same thing about everybody who has ever met Trump, is that he's a wonderful man, and I have no doubt that he's probably really, really nice to talk to and everything like that. But I just disagree with a lot of his rhetoric and a lot of the way he did things when he was in office, and that speaks nothing to the man necessarily, but
Yeah. And I have another story, but really quick, I wasn't actually making fun of you. I was using my buddy's a friend of mine who was actually going to be on this show. I was actually making a joke about one of his posts. So I wasn't mocking you. So anyway, sorry.
It's a
that
very
triggered-
civil response.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're not emotional at all.
No. What was the thing I was gonna say? Oh, so I know another story from the 80s, about like late 80s, that there was a janitor that had a son that I think was sick, whatever, was a huge fan of this certain comic book, and Trump went out of his way to a guy that he saw every night at, I believe, Madison Square Garden, every time that he would come and watch a game, and like gifted this guy this super rare comic book for his kid. And it's like, this is things that people that are, they're just, he's human. He does kind things to people. Like, we've our country has painted him as this horrible human being. And it's all the way up until current, all the way up until 20, 30 years ago. I just think he was a decent person. He just likes to be an asshole when he talks, in my personal opinion. But
he wasn't used to the political landscape of how you have to really. He's used to talking with business people, and most people, especially at the upper echelons of business, are pretty rational, down to earth people that are going to be able to, have these kinds of conversations and joke around. And he just got, hit with a brick by the fact that, wait, you have to be a politician. You literally have to watch every single word because everyone follows everything to the tiniest detail.
Right. I think it worked for him. I think it was his whole personality. I think Trumpism is based around the way he does that. I think he changed the landscape, and that's better.
Yeah.
If there's one thing he did, it's coming in and saying, you know what, I'm just going to say whatever the hell I want. I'd rather hear what's on the guy's mind and what he really thinks.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
Speak. Yeah.
Word.
Yeah, for those who think it is a bad thing.
Yeah. All right, let's wrap it up. Casey, we're going to have you go first. Go for it.
2022 is coming. Look at how we're spending money. Be careful. Our economy is fragile right now. Just be paying attention on who you want in place to help steer this back into control. And just pay attention to what is really going on.
Casey, you've got a new moniker on your thing there. 22. That's your line. 20. That's going to be the case. So like Suni's got her Mata shirt. Casey is going to have 2022 is coming, signed Casey. Suni, I think you're going to be going live after this. Go ahead and give your final words and what you got coming up.
Yeah. What Casey said, I think people need to really understand how important what we have is coming up. 2022. I'm going to be doing a show, Bryson Gray versus woke conservatives. I have to stand my ground. I have to stand for what I believe in because I'm big on integrity. So if you want to come check that out and listen to what we're talking about, that's what we're going to be doing at 10:50. It'll be a late show, but tune in. It's going to be fun.
All right, Cole, go for it. Is that on your regular page? What page is that on?
Yeah, I'm back.
How did they give
my stuff back?
I thought you were banned forever. What happened?
I don't know what happened. When I was sending in messages every day, like, why can't I go live? What's going on? I didn't do anything. And then one day they took the every time I would get a message, they took it away on all my platforms. So now I can go live.
Nice. Excellent. All right.
It's because she put a white person as an admin on her page.
Oh man.
Only you, man.
All right. Cole, go ahead.
Yeah, so one more thing, guys. Go and read the bill and the White House's report on domestic terrorism, and just look at a few things, how they're going to work with big tech companies to get around the First Amendment. That's the first one. And how they said they're going to try and crack down on people without infringing on our civil liberties too much. If you don't think this is Patriot Act 2.0 domestic edition coming, you haven't been paying attention to the government throughout its entire 13,000 years of human civil history. So really, go read that bill, scare yourself, and let's keep talking about it. Let's not forget that they're about to try and death grip our rights.
Sounds good. Kevin, go for it, buddy.
Go check us out over at Liberty Revolt.
Well, we are unfortunately out of time again. What does that say?
It says Hail Lobster. It's a Jordan Peterson shirt.
Oh, nice. All right, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know things look bad for most people. When you look at the way our culture is going, things seem way off. It seems like we're at each other's throat, but I promise you, this is the darkest before the dawn kind of situation. We are going to make it through this. We are, as the American people, we are a tough, strong people. And I know you see the CRT, you see this national strategy for combating domestic terrorism, which again, everyone should go read. Just know that these are last gasp efforts in order to maintain this vice grip. And as long as we keep on fighting, we are going to win. We are going to triumph. And it's just a matter of keeping our heads up and making sure we don't get to a point where we give up.
100%. Facts. All right, guys. So go over to Watch Toonie. We've got Concert Ventures coming up tomorrow night. After, of course, I like to make sure you guys, this is the great part about the show. We've got people like Jermaine Lawrence Anderson. If you want to Google him, learn more about I Am a Gentleman. Great program. We have him on Changemakers tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern time. We always are getting some comments about cash. And we are going to be doing, we need to be doing a show. We're going to give a full update and explain to people exactly what's going on, because I do firmly believe that there is a little bit of confusion of everything. We are fighting for cash in terms of the rights that they are getting inside of that jail. But to break it down to a nutshell, I think people have forgotten exactly why he is in jail. He is in the DC jail. Oh, by the way, my mom actually hung out with Erica and Nova today, so there's going to be pictures to come. Super cute. But they're in the DC jail. They're getting mistreated, but he is in the DC jail because he was a Capitol protester, because he went in the building. But no matter what, even if they release those charges, he has a federal case that he pled guilty for, that he got sentenced to 4 years in jail, and that's pending a appeal on the sentencing, which actually takes a long time to go through. So I know we talk about free cash, all these different things. There's a lot more to it than just what's going on at the Capitol. We want to be clear. Now, the other 30-something, 40 people in there, for the most part, have no other offenses, and the way they're being treated is pretty ridiculous. But we want to be clear. We're doing the best we can to provide information, give updates. We talk to Cash daily, if not every other day. I talk to Erica, make sure everything is good. But we're doing everything that we can. We're giving as much information as we can. So that's where that is. We'll do a whole show and really break it down. You guys can share it. And from that point, that could be our reference to make sure everybody knows exactly what is going on. So thank you guys so much for being a part of Truth Will Set You Free tonight. Make sure you find us on #BeTheChange.com. Go to the podcast. You could just hit /podcast in order for you guys to see that. You could become a Patreon as well. Where is the podcast ticker? Right there. So go to #BeTheChange.com /podcast. That's where everything's going to be. Any of our podcasts, those are obviously not going to get pulled because they're a damn podcast. And that's, the way we could be safe. Ladies and gentlemen, have a great night. Be the change you wish to see in the world. We will see you for all of our other shows tomorrow. '22 is coming.
We need a soundboard.
You're white.
You know what? I knew you would say that. You're a bald white guy that's, pretending to be conservative, and you're a libertarian, and you lie about it. You got a Joe Jorgensen poster on your wall, and you got a dartboard with Donald Trump's face in it, and you think Joe Biden, you're just a hateful white person. I just can't take you anymore.